The topic of this screencast is cranial nerves. This topic may be found in Chapter 7 of your textbook. The objectives of this screencast are as follows. For each cranial nerve, list its name and corresponding number, its function, and its classification. Recall that a nerve is simply a bundle of axons in the peripheral nervous system. Nerves that contain all sensory fibers or sensory axons are referred to as sensory-only nerves. Nerves that contain only motor fibers are referred to as motor-only nerves. Most nerves contain both sensory and motor fibers and are referred to as mixed nerves. There are 12 pair of cranial nerves, either arising or ending at the brainstem and cerebrum. All but one serve the region of the head and neck. Most are mixed, though a few are sensory and motor only. The cranial nerves are given a Roman numeral designation, 1 through 12, starting on the rostral or anterior side of the brain. For example, cranial nerve number 1, the olfactory nerve, is found here. Cranial nerve number 5, the trigeminal nerve, is found here. And cranial nerve number 12, the hypoglossal nerve, is found here. I have provided you with a document that includes a list of all 12 cranial nerves in order with their corresponding Roman numeral numbers. I have indicated the classification of nerve, sensory, motor, or mixed, as well as a short description of their functions. This information on function is also provided in your book and also in your lab manual. However, sometimes the books use terminology that you are not yet familiar with, and sometimes the explanation of function can be rather lengthy. So I have pared that down to one word in some cases, in other cases 1, 2, or 3 brief sentences. I have also provided a couple of mnemonic devices which might be helpful. I encourage you to use mnemonic devices. If you don't like these mnemonic devices, then by all means Google mnemonic devices and cranial nerves and you will have many from which to choose from. And of course you can always make up your own. The names of the cranial nerves are very descriptive. So as I go through each cranial nerve, I will share with you the origins of their names. Cranial nerve number 1 is the olfactory nerve. Olfaction means smell, and this nerve is responsible for sending sensory input from olfactory receptors in the roofs of our nasal cavity back to our brain. The olfactory nerve is a sensory-only nerve. Cranial nerve number 2 is the optic nerve. Op means vision. This nerve, or this pair of nerves, is responsible for sending sensory input from the eyes back to the visual cortex of the brain. Function, of course, is vision, and it is a sensory-only nerve. Cranial nerve number 3 is the oculomotor nerve. Oculo means eye and motor means mover. So this is literally the mover of the eye. Its function is certain eye movements, also controls the size of the pupil and the shape of the lens. The oculomotor nerve is a motor-only nerve. Cranial nerve number 4 is the trochlear nerve. Trochlea means pulley, and I'll explain the name in a moment. The trochlear nerve is responsible for certain movements of the eye. The muscle that the trochlear nerve controls is the superior oblique muscle, and if you look closely, you'll see that The tendon of the superior oblique muscle runs between this little loop-like structure. And as the tendon pulls on the muscle, it acts like a pulley. So that's where the name trochlear comes from. The trochlear is a motor-only nerve. This is just another view of the superior oblique muscle, which is controlled by the trochlear nerve. Notice that that superior oblique muscle loops through this structure, which incidentally is called a trochlea. And again, that's where the trochlear nerve gets its name. Cranial nerve number 5 is the trigeminal nerve. Tri means 3 and gem means born. So this is the nerve that is born of 3 branches to be exact. Here's branch number 1, branch number 2, and branch number 3. The trigeminal nerve is a mixed nerve. It carries sensory information from the face, allowing for sensation of the face, and it also carries motor output to muscles involved in chewing. Cranial nerve number 6 is the abducens nerve. Ab means away, duck means look. So this is the nerve that allows you to look away. The abducens nerve controls the lateral rectus muscle of the eye. This muscle causes the eye to look laterally, and that's where it gets its name. If the eye looks laterally, then I suppose it looks away. The abducens nerve is a motor-only nerve. Its function is eye movement. So far, there are 3 out of 6 nerves that are involved in eye movement. Therefore, if you are ever asked what is the function of any specific cranial nerve and you have absolutely no idea, if you guess eye movement, you have a 3 out of 12 chances of getting it right. Cranial nerve number 7 is the facial nerve. When you think of the facial nerve, think of every possible secretion that comes from the face. The facial nerve is responsible for facial expression. It's also responsible for secretion of saliva, tears, as well as mucus. The facial nerve is a mixed nerve as it also sends sensory input from the taste buds of the tongue. Cranial nerve number 8 is the vestibulocochlear nerve. It is responsible for hearing and balance or equilibrium. Both of these senses are found in the ear. The cochlea is responsible for hearing, and the nerve that extends from the cochlea is called the cochlear nerve. The vestibule is responsible for some aspects of equilibrium or balance, and the nerve that extends from the vestibule is the vestibular nerve. The two merge and form the vestibulocochlear nerve. Therefore, the vestibulocochlear nerve is responsible for both hearing and balance. The vestibulocochlear nerve is a sensory-only nerve. Cranial nerve number 9 is the glossopharyngeal nerve. Glosso refers to tongue. Pharyngeal refers to throat. It is a mixed nerve. It carries sensory information from the posterior taste buds of the tongue, and it also controls the secretion of saliva and controls muscles involved in swallowing. Cranial nerve number 10 is the vagus nerve. Vag means wanderer, and if you look at the many branches of the vagus nerve, you'll understand how it got its name. The vagus nerve is the only cranial nerve that extends below the neck. All of the other cranial nerves serve the head and the neck region. The vagus nerve provides sensory input from and motor output to all of the visceral organs of the pharynx, the larynx, the thoracic, and abdominal cavities. Notice it does not control the organs of the pelvic cavity. The vagus nerve is a mixed nerve. Cranial nerve number 11 is the accessory nerve. Accessory means assistant. At one time, it was thought that this nerve assisted the vagus nerve, and that's how it got its name. The accessory nerve is a motor-only nerve. It controls muscles that are involved in swallowing, as well as muscles involved in movement of the head, neck, and shoulders. Our final cranial nerve is number 12, the hypoglossal nerve. Glossal referring to tongue, hypo meaning below, of course. This is a motor-only nerve. It controls the movement of the tongue during speech and swallowing. Let's review the objectives of this screencast. For each cranial nerve, list its name and corresponding number, its function, and list its classification. The topic of the next screencast will be the spinal cord and spinal nerves.